On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
The bigger your organization gets, the more complicated things are going to get.
Yep.
Then the more important it is to keep things simple. So remove as much friction as possible.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
All right. What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. I'm your host. Today, I've got James Gilman on the King stage. James, how are we doing?
Doing awesome, Chaz. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. I got a full day today, a couple podcast recordings. You're my first. It's fresh first thing in the morning here. Got some strategic planning later this afternoon, but it's Friday, baby. Let's go.
Happy Friday.
James, I'm excited for you to be here. You have a story that is going to bring some value. I'm excited for you to share it. Tell us what kind of business that you have, brother.
Yeah, I am the president of Perimeter Office Products here in Atlanta, Georgia. We were founded back in 2007 by a gentleman by the name of Mike Everett, great friend of mine and mentor. And so he retired a couple of years ago, and I kind of filled his place. So
that's awesome. And from my understanding, you're obviously not new to the industry. You were pretty successful kind of underneath that wing. And so I'm sure we'll get into some of that as well, part of the story. But before we do, I want to know, at this stage in the game, I know you've done sales. I know you've kind of run the gamut underneath the leadership, and now you are the leadership. But my question is, at this stage of the game, at this stage of success, even for you, your family, why are you still doing it? Why are you pushing as hard as you are? Why are you here?
I mean, my answer is probably going to be similar to a lot of other people. Is I love what I was able to accomplish and had so much fun doing it. And I feel like it's created so much value for my life, my family's life, and new opportunities. Yeah. It's exciting to be able to see other people, that I've helped and encouraged along the way kind of come up and do the same thing and see the transformation in their lives and their families' lives as well.
Yeah. That didn't start out like that, though, I'm going to guess.
No, it was like paycheck to paycheck. Is my, beat up Honda going to make it to my next appointment? Am I going to have enough money to pay for groceries this month? So definitely not at all. Several times where didn't know how things were going to happen. So, but kept grinding, and there's been a lot of people who've poured into me. So I just feel an obligation to, return the favor to other people that were in my situation.
Yeah. And obviously, like you said, there's a fulfillment in that. I was just on a podcast yesterday. I was a guest on a leadership podcast, and we were talking about this fulfillment that comes from inside of leadership, being able to pour into others. But even in that, you can still be a good leader and not have maybe the maturity, or what we call a king mindset, like a transitioned maturity, right? Where it's like part of your design, part of your purpose of like, no, this is like who I am now. I have to be able to pour out, AKA I have a kingdom around me and I got to take care of these people. And it's not like really out of like it's like a task. It's like, no, like put the weight right here on my shoulders. I got it. Is that how you feel too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there has to be something outside of yourself. Something. I mean, when you're in the thick of it and it's grinding and you're grinding and it sucks. If you're just doing it for yourself and nobody else, you're not going to have the motivation. Early on, when I came on at Perimeter, there was another guy. He's actually our top salesman now, Kevin Hill. He was my wingman basically. So I knew when I had a crappy day of appointments and went 0 for 0, I'd give him a call up. And so I went through that grind knowing that he was on the other side, working just as hard as me. So I think it's important to have kind of a bigger vision, a bigger goal outside of just yourself.
Yeah, well, like just like you just said, when it's associated or connected even closely like that to another individual or a team, in this case, now you're obviously pouring out and leading a team. In that case that you gave is more of a peer-to-peer, like, hey, we're in it together. We're going to the gym together. Don't you dare
Right.
not show up on me.
Yeah.
But both are equally important, because when you've got people counting on you in both scenarios, we just kind of show up better. At least I do. I don't know. Maybe it's just
100%.
me.
No, it's 100%. It's important to have that accountability, because we can easily, as individuals, make excuses for ourselves, and we judge ourselves based on intentions. Well, I intended to do that, but yeah.
Do you find, I mean, because I love actually where we're going with this, and we'll hang here for a second, but that we judge ourselves on intentions, but we judge other people on actions or results, right? Do you find that?
Totally.
How do you manage that? How do you manage yourself in that? How do you manage others in that, knowing that they probably have good intentions, but you don't really care about those?
Yeah. Well, so when prepping for the meeting, I was listening to a bunch of other podcasts. I cannot remember the Granite guy's name, but it was he was talking about his team, and one of the things that stuck out to me about that podcast was people are people, right? And so often I think people in leadership expect their people to be machines. And so just to realize that, man, you never know what could be going on in somebody else's life. What are their unspoken challenges and struggles that they've got?
That's right.
And honestly, I mean, it's not really your business to know that. It's your business to show up and understand and give grace and give encouragement.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, there definitely needs to be accountability. And I think where I've really grown recently in my new role here at Perimeter is being able to properly set the expectations for my people. I really, for the first part of it, just kind of assumed that people knew what I wanted. And instead of actually explicitly stating, hey, man, let's do this and this. Do you understand? Can you commit to me to do those things?
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't done that before, that's kind of an uncomfortable thing at first.
Yeah.
But it removes so much hassle and headache and cleanup.
Yeah.
Later on down the road, having done that first. So.
Yeah, you just laid it out in layman's terms. And so I think that we should just hang right here. This is so valuable. So if you're listening right now, pay close attention, because we're talking about something super, super applicable to managing people and to running a successful business, even building culture. So what you just said is the ability to be able to set proper expectations. And that's the language that I would have used up until 2 weeks ago. And when I listened to an audio on the difference between expectations and agreements. And so we set expectation of, hey, here's what needs to be done, which you said, but then you also circled up with it with the agreement. And so although you still called it setting proper expectations, which is what I've always called it up until 2 weeks ago, really what it is at the end part, that uncomfortable part that you just mentioned, that's so important, that I'm really wanting to hang here with the listener, is that if you can make the agreement with them, hey, this is the hope, this is the expectation. What do you think about it? Okay, great. Can you commit to this? Can you agree with me that this is the task, this is the timeline, this is the whatever we're talking about, this is the expectation? And then now you have an agreement that we're both in it together. And it's not just like I'm putting this on you, that naturally somebody wants to rebel against anyway. What are your thoughts on this?
No, it's spot on. I mean, it's about relationships,
right?
It's not a dictatorship,
right?
You're not going to be able to build culture. I mean, you can run a business by telling people what to do, but you're probably going to be spending more of your time replacing people and hiring and trying to train people.
That's right.
And I was watching a podcast. I remember Dana White, UFC. I mean, what he's been able to build and do, I love everything about that organization. Talking about having a king mindset. That dude definitely does. But pouring into your people, and having that good relationship with your team is absolutely invaluable. And I think that we saw it too through the challenges we've had over the number of years where like our total economy and everything just kind of blew up and nobody knew what the heck to do. The people who really were willing to dig in and hang on, and there had to be something else there in that organization that they stayed with, some other reason. And I think that the majority of it it's about relationships. willingness to, it wasn't necessarily about money. It's like, I love my team. I love my culture. I love where I'm at. And I'm willing to sacrifice or maybe do a little extra now, knowing that, you know, my company's going to take care of me. My people care about me. So it's about
there's a scene factor, right? Being seen, being heard, right? You're married. I'm married. I know we both got young ones. And so there's this dynamic in all relationships, but it's kind of heightened in marriage, obviously, where it's like, no, I need to be heard. You need to be heard. We both need to be seen in those maybe love language ways. But that applies in leadership and business. It's like, these are real people on the other side. And the cool part is that, you know, eventually, like you said a few minutes ago, maybe they don't share some of those struggles or personal stuff or the things that maybe are going on in their world, but that shouldn't be always like it is, right? Eventually what should happen is that you become a family. And at least if you're trying to do the things that we're talking about, people want to share. People want to have people in their corner. People want to be part of a community or a family. And it sounds like you are giving them an on-ramp to do that, because if you don't give them space or an opportunity to come into an agreement, even just the practicality of it, it's just going to be just like, hey, do this. You know what I mean?
Well, there's no way that you're going to be able to scale if you have to be involved in every single decision in your business.
Right. That's right.
You have to be able to build trust with that next layer, next level of people around an agreed upon set of core values, an agreed upon set of rules that it's like, hey, man, I trust you. I think that you're the right person for this role. And not that I'm abdicating responsibility. We're still going to have regular talks and check-ins, and I'm still going to inspect, but you have my full support to make decisions based on these core values. You know, for Perimeter, it's AIR, which is an acronym for accountability, integrity, and responsibility.
Love it.
It is teamwork, right? It's not just about you. You have, when in your job, it's your responsibility to also understand how your role impacts other areas of the business. You know, for our delivery drivers, I expect the sales team to, make sure they have all the information put in right, so the driver knows where he's supposed to go. Customer care and all around, right? So make sure that you have a responsibility for that, your teamwork. And then at the end of the day, it's all about our customers. So being customer centered, removing the friction for our customers to do business with us, because without our customers, none of us would be here. So those are our three things. So
love it.
Pushing all that onto, the second level and trusting them to do it. That's how you're going to be able to scale. I'm not making all the decisions. I'm just cheering on my team that they're making the right ones.
That's right. Well, so much great value right away. The listener's going to, hopefully they're taking notes already, but we still got more to go. So let's go into your story a little bit here. You kind of came up the ranks. You mentioned that you were in sales before and you were kind of running and gunning and hard work and grit. Give us a little bit just of your background, maybe even before.
Yeah. So I went to UGA, go Dogs. I got to start there. So after college, I actually went to school.
Good time to be a Dog fan.
Yeah, it really is. So went to school for physical education.
Okay.
So wanted to be a teacher. I told you earlier, I love playing. I love turning everything into a game. But I also had, financial dreams and goals and aspirations too. So
those didn't line up, are you saying?
I went into sales. A buddy of mine long ago said, hey man, you can make X amount of dollars. And that was more than what a starting salary was for a teacher. And so I started in, basically it was search engine optimization, booking appointments. So I kind of cut my teeth on smiling and dialing and trying to schedule appointments. And that, looking back on it now, I mean, that set me up big time to be successful in my industry, calling, setting appointments. So I realized that sales was probably one of the easiest ways for me to quickly ramp up, my income potential. Right. And so that's where it started.
It's funny because I had this, similar feeling. Obviously I'm not college educated like you. So, you got one up on me, but the reality here is like, look, whether you come out of college like you did or me, I'm like, I don't know if that makes sense for me. We both landed in the same place going, well, what's the best way to make money? Like, because at that stage in the game, it's like, maybe my heart's desire is to play games and, that type of thing, but we got some life to live here. I plan on having some kids. I need a foundation. Right. And so I just appreciate that hustle, that grit, forward thinking, even just like the willingness to do something completely new for a short period of time, which has led to obviously other things. How would you say, for you being now the president, and there's obviously a growth factor, a sales factor that goes into leading a company for sure. Mm-hmm. But how would you say that sales prepared you for this role, maybe even outside of just the growth mindset? Or maybe is that the biggest piece? But because there's a big difference between sales and being a corporate leader. So give us the idea, how did that transition? Why does that equate?
Well, I think that no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you're always going to have to deal with people.
That's right.
Always. I mean, even in accounting, you're not talking to anybody or doing anything. And now, even more so, I have the opportunity to work with a phenomenal accounting team, and I've been privileged to have more time to actually talk and get to know that side of the house. We've got some amazing people that if I'd stayed in sales, would have never really had the opportunity to start building those relationships and learning the things that they do. And that in and of itself has changed my perspective a lot. But it's in sales, everybody thinks, I'm not a people person, I don't want to go into sales. Some of our most successful salespeople here are not necessarily people. But no matter where you go, I mean, you're always going to have to deal with people, understand relationships, understand how to connect with people, how to win with people. So early on, I realized, and I was fortunate enough to have a number of people who poured into me, if you want to call it a mentor or whatever, but encouraged me to read a number of books. And YouTube came early on the scene, 2007, 8, 9. I don't know how many tens of thousands of hours I've spent listening to, YouTube videos stuff, but I think there's similarity between all roles because you've got people involved. So.
Yeah, you're right. It's obviously a big connector in life. I loved how you put the communication piece, right? Because whatever we're doing, it's the communication. It's a big reason why in my journey, I spent so much time in personalities. I've read a lot of personality books, a lot of just, how the brain works, optimism versus pessimism, there's just certain things that we do naturally and that we can do that maybe are unnatural. Totally. And to know those things, even as a leader, know those things about myself, but then also about the people that I'm leading or the people that I'm trying to sell to. It's the cheat code in my opinion.
No, 100%. And it blows my mind because I've seen it work like magic in my career. It's not magic. It's just how things are, but how more people don't know about that or are willing to spend time trying to figure that component out in their own lives.
Yeah. I think it's you're right. It's underutilized, undervalued. But if I'm being honest, if I'm looking back at all the skill sets that I have, of course I would say, sales is, that's what builds companies. It's what, I made a crap ton of money in sales before businesses and stuff. And so, but underneath that, it's communication. It's understanding me, it's understanding the other person, how to modify in those situations to make it the easiest form of communication to where what I'm trying to say lands with them or understanding what they're saying so that I can fully get it. I think if I had to share with somebody, if you don't fully understand your personality, how you do things, if you don't understand how to quickly, immediately after just, 20 minutes, we've been on this recording now for, 20 minutes, we've been on the whole deal for 36. It's I got a pretty good feeling of who you are. You probably got a pretty good feeling of who I am. We don't know each other super well yet, but I could start making some decisions about how to communicate with you based on what we've been doing back and forth naturally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
You find yourself doing this in a leadership way. So kind of changing this to a business owner perspective and going, okay, so I'm hiring people, I'm building teams. You have current teams that you're even starting to get to know that were already in place. That's a whole nother level of relationship and communication. So just kind of put the spin on it of knowing them, what are you doing on a tactical level to infuse this or get to know those people that maybe you didn't know before, that type of thing.
I think it's important I want things to be done really, really quick. Let's make it happen now.
Right.
Piggybacking off our relationship, the conversation a little earlier, it takes time. You got to build in a system. So out of the gate, I realized that just like in sales, you've got a time map, daily, weekly, monthly. You've got your goals. You've got well, I'm not managing clients anymore. Now I'm managing the business, the parts of the business. So I've got to time map out and be consistent with my communication with each of my team members. So, we've got Mondays, we're doing our quick meet together. Hey, what's going on this week? Every Tuesday, we've got a managers meeting where everybody gets together. So now instead of me pouring into my clients with that, with my time, now it's me pouring into the different departments.
Yeah.
Again, it's all the same basic principles and foundations, just a different way of applying those same values in different parts of the business.
Yeah. So if you're listening right now and you're paying close attention, what we're saying that you need to go do is learn people, learn yourself in the process of learning people. Don't just make it outward, like learn you and then learn people and figure out how those two things to go together. And James says that you'll be successful. That's all right. Chaz says it as well.
I'll do a book plug. This is the book that I give every single one of my salespeople who come on.
Okay.
And it is, I hear people, I don't like reading. It's 34 pages.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not willing to invest 30 minutes into it, but The Art of Dealing with People by Les Gilman. Yeah. It's awesome. It'll change your life and how you deal with people.
You just said something that it just steals my attention. I got to bring it up. And the book is great. I highly recommend it as well. But you just said, if you're not willing to invest, it's so funny. I have stood in front of, I don't know, at this point, hundreds, thousands, maybe a couple thousand sales reps.
Yep.
Who are looking to be trained, whether that was me in my own system training them or before when I was working for a company and in a new hire training and there's 100 reps sitting there. And I would use this scenario. I'd say, okay, like who all wants to make six figures, right? And every hand goes up. Every hand goes up. And then I'm like, okay, great. Well,
it's easy to raise your hand.
In the last year, how many people have invested, as you said, in yourself, in a book, a course, something regarding communication, sales, training of sorts? And like almost all the hands go down, but there's like, out of 100, maybe 5 or 10 that stay up. Okay, great. And what about in the last 6 months? A couple of those hands go down. What about in the last month? Every hand goes down. And you're like, okay, so here's what we got to learn how to do. Freaking be a professional, right? Yeah. How can you, as a salesperson, or what we're talking to now as business owners. So if you're listening right now and you consider yourself a business owner, an actual professional who's trying to build a 7-figure, 8-figure company, or maybe you are an 8-figure guy and you're trying to blow the roof off. I have no idea, but you have to be a professional, which means what do professionals do? They train repeatedly over and over and over. And even if it means listening to a podcast or getting on a podcast, right? Like we are constantly like putting ourselves in new situations and or learning from other people to go to the next level. This is what professionals do. It's one of our core values, gathering the kings. We're professionals. It's great. It's hard work. It's do what you say. It's integrity, all these things. But it's like, I'm a freaking professional. How can you demand a certain size of business, or back in sales, how can you demand 6 figures or multiple 6 figures if you're not even reading a book, man? Like, come on.
Well, going back to the whole psychology piece too, you're almost kind of subconsciously not expecting success because you're not putting in the work.
Yeah.
You're not doing it yourself. So when you're going the extra mile and the extra step and you start doing things that the majority's not, you're now going to start expecting those results. Man, I've been doing the reps, man. I better get this sale. I better get this, whatever. It as your mindset changes, you're at the king mentality. Your expectations change. You're gonna grow. It's a formula that it's fail proof.
Yeah, it is. It's funny because when people think it's failing them, it's because the results aren't coming in maybe the exact area that they think. But we both know as salespeople and or even now business owners, it's like you just lay down so much seed that it doesn't matter. There's a harvest coming, no doubt. And then what you just said is I have expectation. Oh my goodness, what a reality that is of like, no, I did the work. It's coming up for sure. Which is now we're kind of talking, optimist perspective, but it's like if you can have that expectation, it changes how you deal.
It's so funny you said seeds, because every morning I send out a quote of the day, motivational quote of the day to the whole company. And just this morning it was by Robert Louis Stevenson. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant.
Oh yeah.
So be focused on doing the actions, not on what results you're getting. And if you're in that, you know, and that is that there is a big difference between that being activity focused versus being, you know, goal focused. I think a lot of people mess up with that. It's like, boom, I finally hit, you know, whatever your number is that you want to hit. And then everything falls apart after that versus thinking today, man, I am going to be successful today if I do these things. I know if I do these things, then I'm going to hit my goal, but that the goal is not the focus, it's the daily activities.
Yeah.
So even when you're not getting, you know, the big sale or closing the deal or whatever, you know that it's going to come because you've been successful today doing those activities.
Yeah, I mean the analogy of the farmer or the seed is farmer, right? Like we know this to be true, but what you just said goes back to the seed. It's like the farmer doesn't just throw seed and hope. Yes, there are many factors, like there's soil, there's moisture, whether there's precipitation from rain or already moisture in the ground. There's, you know, animals, like there's all sorts of variables that he doesn't have control over. However, he has an expectation of a harvest.
Totally.
And he generally knows, like, okay, if I do this, then I'm going to get this. So there's, even though you focus on just the spreading of the seed and spreading so much good seed that it's a guarantee that you're going to get a good harvest, you still expect a harvest.
Totally.
Love the perspective. Okay, let's go practical here. Inside the business, what decision have you made that has just been an incredible decision? It's led to a bunch of success, and we can learn from it.
The more I've talked to different businesses, you know, other friends with different businesses, the more I'm surprised that there's not really a defined process, a defined sales process. And honestly, I think that's what's been the secret success of Perimeter. I mean, since 2007, started at zero. And, you know, we're 27 million as of, you know, last year, but most of that growth was all organic. And we grew organically, double-digit growth, because we had a process, a repeatable, you know, we knew what results we were going to get, and we just stuck to it. So I would say the biggest decision is to keep that, and the bigger your organization gets, the more complicated things are going to get. Then the more important it is to keep things simple. So remove as much friction as possible, you know, focus on the main things and try and automate as much as you can. But that's really been our main focus, is connecting with new clients, connecting with new businesses here in the Atlanta area. There's thousands of new businesses starting up all the time. So if we just kind of sit back and relax with the account base that we've got now, there's always going to be attrition. Our focus is acquisition. Yes, you know, maintaining relationships is still very important, but that system of going out and getting new businesses and building that account base, that's our secret sauce.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm sure we'll get to this with some of my questions later in the speed round, but I loved how you put the depiction. It doesn't mean you don't focus on the client experience. I think we both realize that, especially in the different types of businesses that we have that are like a reoccurring model of sorts, your clients demand a good experience. Otherwise, they're just going to leave.
Yeah. Right.
And so you have to do that. And in fact, you have to be obsessed with that we can't just step over that lightly. However, filling the bucket with new opportunities is the lifeblood. It's what's going to make the difference for the next 27 years, because to your point, everything does have an attrition, and it will attrit out to zero at some point.
Yeah.
Even if that's 30 years in the future, well, what happens after that? It's your responsibility to fill the pipeline now, so that 40, 50, 60 years from now, or just the fact that it can grow. There's more opportunity. Like, there's so many other reasons that come into filling the pipeline. So I appreciate that kind of depiction of the front and the back of the house there. You want to add anything else before we move on there?
No. I mean, that's it. Just life doesn't stop.
Yeah.
A lot of times I kind of think it's easy for us just to kind of focus, you know, on what we have done, expecting everything to always be what it was. And life never stops. So things are always changing.
Yeah. And as they change, if you're not in the mode, right? If you're not game ready, as they say,
focused on the daily actions.
Yeah.
Right? That's what keeps you in tune. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't do that, then you're just smacked upside the head and it hurts bad.
Yeah.
Where maybe if you're still going to get hit, I mean, there's still going to be changes. There's still going to be, you know, the the black swan events, COVIDs and the such coming forward. But they don't hit as hard if you're, game ready and you're in shape, for lack of better terms. What about a bad choice? Something that you did that, bad results, but we can learn from it. So give it to us.
Chaz, we don't got enough time for that, man. So many silly decisions looking back on. I wish I had done that differently, but I think that the realization that nothing is fatal, nothing is final. Being humble enough to realize, okay, my bad, shouldn't have done that, and being willing to set your ego aside and just learn from it and then move on. I think it makes it a whole lot easier when you're operating, specifically in this case with your organization, that focusing on relationships instead of that kind of dictatorship. I'm telling you what to do and you better do it. Yeah. When you're giving other people grace in times when you just trip and fall on your face in front of everybody, your team is way more willing to give you grace back, and you're less likely to try and save face, so to speak. So totally. I think that's really on the times when I really have kind of screwed up bad or made silly decisions or, whatever, that your teammate and the relationships that you built with your team. Yeah. That's when it's really, really important. Right.
What you just said is a huge principle. And so I'm going to press you a little bit here because I want to know of a specific situation or a moment in time that you can share where, of course, there was a goof on your end, fine, but where you got that reaction from your team. Because when you get that reaction, it's not only the seed that you had planted originally as a leader, but it's also the response of the team. So to your team's horn here real quick, tell us that bad thing that happened. So
most recently, we're trying to figure out, how to grow, and we're setting in some new processes. And so, one of the decisions, I made a decision to require 50% down for a customer. They've been a long-term customer. It's a new process that we had put in place. Yeah. And I had made the decision without necessarily consulting, that salesperson, right? So when you've got, four major departments, 60 plus people in the organization, you've got other things flying and hitting you in the face. I made a quick decision. This is what we're going to do, and the client pulled the order, and it wasn't a small order. Yeah. So that affected my sales team. That affected commissions, and
the downward spiral real quick.
Well, if I feel that we had the relationship to be able to, I've went, guys, dude, I'm so sorry. I should have consulted with you first. We should have considered, maybe we could have come up with a different solution. Yeah. Kind of going back into, I want things to happen right now. It's a new process. So that's one of the thousands of examples I could give, but that's one of the more fresher ones. Yeah.
No, it's huge. I think that, we'd all love to collect 100% up front. So I'm not mad at you for trying to get 50 because there's operating costs here, right?
Cool. And this just happened last week. They did pull the order, and there were some other things going on with that client. They had some other internal changes too, but they never placed it with anybody else. It just paused. So we actually wound up getting the order a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So that was a nice outcome. It didn't hit when we wanted it to, but
it still came back.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a lot of emotion when it comes to client money, salespeople money, commission, projected revenue that doesn't come. Like there's a lot of tension on the line that can be created in that type of situation.
Creating goals. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It affects a lot. There's a domino effect there. That's for sure. Okay. Well, let's go over to the speed round here. I want to go into KPIs. I want to know if you could only track one thing, James, in that side, in that business, what would it be? Just one.
Well, it's probably not going to come as a shocker, but new accounts, new account revenue, new dollars. If the rest of if our drivers are doing what they're supposed to be doing, customer care is doing what they're supposed to be doing. We've got phenomenal drivers and an incredible customer care team. Knowing that there's always going to be attrition, if we can do what we can to try and stop as much attrition as possible, right? As long as acquisition's outpacing attrition, you're always going to grow. Right. So new accounts with in fact, we have a new account contest right now, and just in the month of January, earlier this week. So the numbers are probably a lot higher than this, but we already have 147 new accounts in the month of January. So they're chomping at the bit. We've got about 6 guys there's a lot of smack talking going on.
That's
and
awesome.
some extra bonus dollars to go along with it. But
yeah, recession, what? 23 recession? No, nothing
look,
on your end.
I mean, a lot of people can make excuses, but Mike Everett, the founder of Perimeter, he started in 2007.
Yeah.
I mean, to everybody, everybody else's advice was no, horrible decision. But again, he had a process. He trained me and a couple of other hungry young sales guys on it. And I guess, if you're looking at the entire, industry as a whole, yeah, it might shrink, but that doesn't mean that you can't get a bigger piece of pie of that. If you're talking, what is a couple million, what's 10 million, 20 million of a huge industry? It's nothing.
Oh yeah. It's nothing. Yeah. I right along that same line. This is mindset, obviously, but I heard this a long time ago and it really shook me. Just what you just said, but in a slightly different way. It was like, look, man, you personally, James, you could take $10 million out of the flow. Like you could make personally, not sell, personally make $10 million today. Nobody would have a clue.
Yep.
Nobody. Now the IRS would probably know, but outside of them,
yeah,
nobody, nobody would be phased. Nobody would give you congratulations. It just gone. $10 million. Like that would obviously $10 million in an investment right now would pay you a handsome salary for the rest of your life. You never have to do anything ever again.
Sure.
And it would not mean anything to anybody. That is just like, whoa, it's a big ocean out there.
So I wonder how many people listening now, that number kind of makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There was a time when, and what is a number anyway? It's,
right.
It's your perception. So if
it is,
if you don't think that it's possible, you haven't spent the time pressing yourself and kind of getting outside of your own comfort zone to figure out how is it possible.
That's right.
And that's one of the reasons I'm excited about connecting with you and a lot of the other people on this podcast is being around other people who have been successful, and that stretches me. So it shows you what is possible.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And that's our obligation too. It's your obligation to succeed so you can show other people what is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like two sides of that coin that you just described. There's the humility to realize that even though you're successful, we call it grateful, but not done.
Totally.
Like if that's
not satisfied.
Oh yeah. Like, but grateful, like satisfied totally. In the moment of like, okay, cool, content, fine. But we are far from done. But then what that leads you into are the rooms, or the people, the podcasts, the training, the learning, because you're humble. And then you get to pour out in an authority figure, leadership role, business owner role, whatever, doesn't matter, community, church, marriage, lots of different facets that you could pour that out. James, what would you recommend? You already gave Art of Dealing with People, or no, the other book earlier, but what book or a resource would you recommend for growth?
So specifically in the sales, Words That Work, maybe even anywhere, but Words That Work is a really, really good book. It brought to my attention, every word has a connotation, and slice open your sentences that you're deploying to your prospective customers and ask yourself, could this be perceived in a negative way? Yeah. And can you say it a different way? So one thing that I train my sales reps is our cutoff is at 5 p.m. Right. Or we could say the same thing in a positive connotation. You can order all the way up until 5 p.m.
That's right.
So one way the customer could perceive that as a negative, but I'm saying the same thing so Exactly What to Say is a great book to kind of, help you think through some of the, the phrases. One of them is, this may not be for you, but so immediately you've kind of taken the salesy nature off of it and given that person an out. So
yeah.
That's a good book. There's 1,000 other ones too.
No, I have not heard of that book, but the principles of what you're talking about, we could go days, and we probably just,
I eat that kind of stuff up, man. I'm happy to talk about that stuff anytime. But one thing I do want to say is I really didn't used to like reading. ADD is difficult for me, work. I did not have the greatest, English I had some good English teachers, but the majority of them across the board I just didn't connect with, and they didn't, so don't force yourself to read something that you're not enjoying. Make it an enjoyable experience, so that's for the people who don't want to read.
Yeah. Well, and to put my little 2 cents on that, because you're 100% right. I didn't read. I think I read one book in 7th grade, cover to cover, the first Harry Potter. It was my homeroom middle school.
Yeah.
I resourcefully made it through the rest of school. You know what I mean by that. But
yes, I do.
But I'll tell you what, at 18, I graduated high school and I've read hundreds, no exaggeration.
Sure.
And they're all people skill, mindset, growth, leadership. I mean, you name it. And my wife gives me such a hard time because she's like, don't you ever want to sit down and read a story? I'm like, no, not really. Give me my wife got to take notes.
Yeah. My wife says, James, no more books. And she's a librarian. She's a media studies specialist. So I love her to death. She's amazing. Love you, Joni. But she's like, you have enough books. I've got books, everywhere. And I don't finish them and I don't read them cover to cover. And those type of books we're talking about, you can literally pick them up, read a couple of sentences, bullet points, in 5 minutes, put it down, chew on it. What did you just hear? So Audible too. So
good. Audible.
If you don't want to read, I drive all the time. I can't read. Audible.
That's right. So, okay. What are your thoughts on intentionally networking and or masterminding with other entrepreneurs or business owners?
My dad told me from a really early age, you got to rub shoulders with the people you want to be like. So my dad set an awesome example, and I didn't have a choice, but I mean, he would make friends and still does to this day, wherever we went. And he would be goofy and talk in an Australian accent, when we'd go up to the counter to order something. Everybody has their name tag.
Yeah.
Hi, Sally, how are you today? And so, I learned, from an early age, make friends wherever you go and rub shoulders with the people that know who you don't want to be like and know who you do want to be like. Everybody you meet has some value to bring to you. And and make an intentional effort to try and spend time around people you want to be like. And I did notice too, when my self-image was not really that good, people who are successful want to spend time with other people and want to help other people. They're the most gracious people ever. So
yeah, it's the king mindset, right? Like once you realize it's part of it, it's part of who we are now, it's part of the fulfillment. It's selfish of my fulfillment to pour into you. That's not what we're thinking, obviously, but
no, not at all.
It's just part of the game. Like, it's just like, this is a chip that's on the table now and I play it because, man, probably, like you said, most likely someone poured into us.
Totally.
And you got that little humility factor, that grateful but not done perspective. And it's like, you know what? I see me in that younger guy, or I see me in that younger gal.
Yeah. There's no better feeling than to watch other people succeed. And
that's right.
And hoping that you had a small part,
that's right,
in that success.
That's right. I've got a question for you here around family. I'm gonna give you a little U curve here in the story before we finish. But there's a storyline in entrepreneurs, presidents, CEOs, business owners, whatever their title is, where we're obsessed, right? We're obsessed about sales process. We're obsessed with growth. We're obsessed with the teams. We're obsessed with all of our people. We're obsessed with our business. That's why we're successful. And there's a lot of people out there that talk about balance and being able to kind of, have both of, your family and your kids and your wife and your business and all this stuff. Like we want to, tightrope it and balance it. And I just say foo-foo, like that's garbage, throw it out the window. I don't believe in that. What I do believe in though is obsession, right? That's why we're successful in business, is obsession. And so, or burning desire, as you might read,
totally
rich. So how have you been able to keep the burning desire in your marriage and or even with your kids, as well as the business at the same time?
It becomes a part of you. I don't know, like everything that we talk about. I mean, my wife is amazing. And if I'm having challenges or troubles, or what do you think about this? Or, I mean, it's a part of it is who I am. I mean, I am in office supplies, and it's because of that. That's our family is, it's why we live where we live and, have what we have, and, and we appreciate that. So it has also helped bring me and my wife closer together too. So when I bring my wife along, with me, it brings us closer together when I'm talking about business stuff. And she doesn't, nor should I expect her to know every nuance and everything about it, but she has a great intuition that I wish I'd probably paid a whole lot more attention to earlier on in our marriage. But she's able to see things that I'm not, even having no idea really about, business per se.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah. So I think, you're right. There really is no, bifurcation between, personal and then work. I'm one person. So what happens over here does, whether I like it or not, does affect, this over here. So, and vice versa. So
do you have any practicals on the family side that have helped you, even though you're still maybe the same person in both sides, that have helped you, I guess, have the same importance on that side of the coin?
So we do something as a family, and it was my wife's idea and her lead, and we have grown to love it as a family, but we have a family meeting. Every single Sunday, we sit down, and so we've got 3 kids, 6, 4, and 2. And so when our 2-year-old naps on Sundays, that's when, and so we're starting to teach the skills to, our 2 boys have goals. What did you do good? What did you not do good this week? What are we going to work on this week? All right. Where's everybody going to be this week? What do we need to plan for? What about dinners, meals? So from the family side, I mean, you have to bring that has helped bring order into this total chaotic life, and communication between my wife and I, and that has probably been the best thing for us over the past couple of years.
Yeah, that's huge. We do the same thing, a couple different variations of such, but man, super, super and cool. Also cool that you bring the kids into it. We do the same. Yeah. I'm 9, 6, 3, and 7 months. So same thing, 7-month-old napping. We've got the other 3, and we're like, okay, guys. In fact, actually, try this. This is something cool that my wife came up with.
Okay.
We stand up in front of the family, and they're holding something, not a mic, but it's something that to represent a mic. And they're on stage, right?
Love it.
Public speaking, and they're giving like their goals or their report for the week. Right?
Yeah.
But they got to do it in a public speaking setting. So
that's very cool. Yeah. All right. And being intentional about creating the opportunities to do that. Yeah. So my son's in karate and Cub Scouts. So he's got an opportunity to do that, but also to do it at home. I like that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, it's a safe environment, number one. Yeah. And they can be nervous, and they can work through that now at 6, as opposed to, later when they're trying to run a business, because I don't know about you, but we're going to probably produce some pretty intellectual children if we're doing this type of stuff with them at 6.
That's my goal. That's my goal.
That's right. All right. Last question here for you, James. If you could whisper in the younger James's ear, what would you say?
You can do more than you think you can. Yeah. Don't put limitations on what you think you can do, because you just may surprise yourself, and change your perspective on failure.
Good. It's good. What do you think today would look like if the younger James knew that?
Man, I don't know. And that's kind of what drives me and motivates me today, right? Yeah, get uncomfortable now, get outside your comfort zone. Sometimes the practicality or the, stop planning, just do it. Right. Yeah. So
time to go, baby. Yeah, all right. Man. Well, James, you've been incredible. I do want to give the listeners an opportunity to connect with you. So number one, maybe they need office supplies. How can they find you?
Absolutely.
Number two, if they're a business owner, they just want to pick your brain. How can they find you to do that as well?
And yeah, I have so enjoyed talking with you too, Chaz. I'm so energized. I'm ready to, go make some phone calls and talk to some new people too. So thanks for having me on. Deal. So no, anywhere nationwide, feel free to reach out to us, perimeteroffice.com. And connect with me on LinkedIn, James Gilman.
Okay.
So would love to chat with anybody in the area about business or anything else.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes for the listeners to be able to find and connect with you. You have been sensational. We appreciate just your value, number one, but then also just your time, just being willing to serve and give, like we talked about earlier, that king mindset. It really is appreciated. So thank you for being here. We wish you nothing but blessing in your family, on your team, all that you put your hand to in 23. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thanks, Chaz. Take care, man.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.